Yeah, it's on your first unit starting tonight. Oh, boy. They do in Florida. Oh, yeah, oh, I
All right, is everybody just about ready? All right.
It's Stephanie.
Marianne, give us a- All right. So are we live?
Yep.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Board of Education public input session to order concerning cell phones. Dr. Cook will run things, and Emily Rosenthal, our secretary, will also run things. With that.
I'll start. Welcome everyone who's in person and online. Thank you for attending our public input session. The Board of Education is excited to hear from citizens regarding cell phones in schools. If you're here to address a topic other than cell phones, we ask that you wait until the regular Board of Education meeting at 7:30. Each citizen is able to speak for up to 3 minutes on this specific topic. We do ask when you speak to state your name and your address. I will, because there's so many folks who want to speak, I will be letting you know when your time is up. Comments are also available and you can submit them on paper. We did receive some in advance. The board's and administration's role tonight is to listen. We won't be responding to specific comments. We believe that this issue will be continued to be reviewed by the Board of Education throughout the school year. Also, we ask when you speak to come up to this table here. If there's someone in front of you and you basically agree with their sentiment, you're welcome to say ditto and add anything else that you might want to add to that. We'll be alternating between in-person and online speakers. And I'll now ask Dr. Cook to share some materials, what he's provided tonight.
Yes, thank you. It's great to see so many of you out tonight. This is great attendance for a board meeting. It's not often that we have so many of our families come forward. So this is great. And we do have, I know our chairman of the board is online. He could not be with us tonight, but he is online, and we may have one more board member join us online too. So we'll also at some point take some comments from those that are on Zoom. At the side table, if you came in late, please grab a copy of the State Board of Ed draft policy and some regulations that they provided school districts just prior to the start of the school year. They provided those in late August. There's a draft administrative regulation that reflects where we currently are in our school districts. So we have made some changes coming into this school year. And we wanted to provide so everyone knows kind of where we are as a starting point. And then the current Board of Education policy is there as well. That is currently in place for the board and our students. And with that said, I'll turn it back to Ms. Rosenthal before we start us on.
Okay, so we'll start in person. If you'd like to come up to the table, state your name and address, and I'll start the timer. Who would like to go first? I'll go first.
We're coming over here?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
I thought I had to stand over here. All right. My name is Victoria Candelora, and I am a resident at 277 Bartlett Drive. I have 2 boys in the Madison school system in 5th and 7th grade respectively. I strongly believe that our children do not need small personal computers at their disposal throughout the school day. Let's be clear. This is not an issue of phones. This is an issue of technology, social media, and the Internet of Things being at our children's fingertips in their learning environment. I'd like to share a few examples of how my elder son, who does not have a cell phone or an old school flip phone, has experienced other students and their cell phone usage in school. These are stories directly from him. I went to the bathroom at school today, and there was another boy sitting on the ground with earbuds staring at his phone. When I asked him how typical that was, he told me it happens all the time because students go to the bathroom to use their phones and then they just sit there. Classmate, no name, is really fun until we're allowed to have cell phones out. Then he stops talking and he just stares at his phone. On our field trip today, it was just me and 2 other students who didn't have phones. We were talking to each other. Everyone else was taking pictures and using inappropriate filters on them. 4th grade is when everything changed on the bus. People used to all be talking, but then everyone got phones. Now everyone blasts rap music and I hear the N-word and it makes me uncomfortable. I understand the resistance of some parents to limitations, wanting to ensure that they can communicate with their children. Those communication channels are already open during school hours, throughout the school, as they always have been and always will be. If additional communication is needed after school hours, I ask why a small personal computer is needed to enable that. If that were truly the problem that needed to be addressed, we would not be here today. While I appreciate that the public has been given an opportunity to provide input on this topic, I think that those closest to it will be able to give the most true and actionable feedback. Our teachers. I urge you, the Board of Ed, to reach out to our teachers to hear how cell phone usage is truly impacting our children's classrooms.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll go to people online. If you're joining us on Zoom and you'd like to speak, just raise your hand and you'll be called upon. We'll give them a minute. We'll go back to in person. Who else would like to speak now? Chat.
My name is Frank Brasso. I live at 96 Princess Drive. I have a son and daughter at Polson, as well as a son at Ryerson. I have been a dean of students in higher education for the past 30 years. I'm currently assistant dean for student affairs at Yale's School of Public Health. I have also served as an adjunct professor for 15 years. Over the past dozen years, I have witnessed a sharp decline in the well-being, professionalism, and social skills of students at the graduate level in education, largely due to their reliance and dependence on smart devices. In that time, I have personally witnessed a dramatic increase in the number of these students who enter graduate level education already struggling with their mental health and wellness. The data and evidence out now demonstrates the rise in anxiety and depression for those young adults who had a phone-based childhood. But the increase in anxiety and depression is not the only issue. These young adults no longer have the social or professional skills to thrive in life. I've witnessed a dramatic decline in the ability to properly communicate with one another face to face. Many of my students are now too anxious to talk to their classmates or professors about an issue in person. They would rather address them digitally. They're too used to digital communication as a way to avoid difficult conversations we all have to have sometimes. These interpersonal skills need to be practiced now in elementary through high school, at recess, in the hallways, at lunch, and even in pride. But because students have access to their phones throughout the day, whether it's in between classes or at lunch, they're missing valuable face-to-face interpersonal experiences. In higher education, they need to discuss and debate sometimes very difficult and personal topics. These young adults and young professionals no longer have the experience to do this because they've relied on expressing their views from behind a screen since middle school or earlier. It has come to the point where my school has to devote a portion of its new student orientation to train students, graduate students at Yale University, on how to have compassionate dialogue with one another. We literally have to teach them how to listen to another person's views, reflect on it, and express their own thoughts in a respectful manner. There's no doubt in my mind as a 30-year professional in dealing with graduate students that this change is a result of the lack of face-to-face interactions they could have had during childhood. By giving our own Madison students 6 to 7 hours of true phone-free learning and socializing, we would be benefiting them the opportunity of having to interact with each other and hone social skills and interpersonal behaviors they will need to succeed throughout their lives. Thank you.
if you like, those who have, type of statements, if you'd like to leave them for the record, you can leave them on that table before you go. So it looks like we have someone online. We'll give you permission to speak. Go ahead. Are you there?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Right, great. My name's Lana Rowan. My address is 209 Race Hill Road. I'm obviously a parent, and I'm also an educator. So I have a 5th grade, a 3rd grade, and 1st grade student in Madison Public Schools. And I've been an educator in New Haven for close to 20 years. And I currently work at a school called Barnard Environmental Science and Technology School, where we're in the 2nd year of using Yondr pouches and a cell phone free policy. So I just wanted to share some of my experiences. I'm part of the Madison Youth Unplugged group. So I follow along with them in the Facebook group, and I'm here to sort of support what their initiatives are. The way that we do it at our school is that we provide parents with a letter at the beginning of the school year, going over some of the information about the challenges using cell phone in our school. And then we provide all students who have a cell phone with a Yondr pouch that's purchased by the school. And then we, at arrival, we have staff that come and greet students every day. We have them lock their Yondr pouches with their cell phone or earbuds or smartwatches into the Yondr pouches every day. And we ask them to lock them up, and we see that they're locked up before they attend class. If they forget their Yondr pouches, we ask them to go to the main office, where they'll either hand in their cell phones to the main office and administration, or we'll give them a temporary Yondr pouch. So again, this is our 2nd year of implementing these pouches along with this no cell phone policy, and we do it for grades 5 through 8 because we're a pre-K through grade 8 school. And we found significant decrease in cell phone issues at our school. So prior to that, we've had a plethora of issues and challenges with students on social media, skipping class to do, TikTok videos, meeting up with their friends, text messaging throughout class periods. We also found if students were asked to hand over a phone, because they've been asked numerous times to hand over a phone, they've become very reactive. We know students are so attached to their cell phones that it's almost like taking a piece away from them. Since we've used these Yondr pouches, cell phone issues have decreased drastically. In addition to, if a student has a cell phone that they have not locked up prior to coming to school, we've found that, or I've personally found also, that students aren't as reactive towards handing it over. It's almost like, yep, we know what the policy is, we know what the procedure is. I don't like it, but this is what it is. Everyone else has their phones in their Yondr pouches. And generally the students will be a lot more compliant in regards to handing over the phone or allowing us to provide them a Yondr pouch to lock up. And what we found too is that before having the Yondr pouches, one of the challenges was that if the conflict arose in school, say between students or whatever the situation was, they were immediately going to their cell phones and contacting a family member or a sibling or someone else outside of the school before any adult even knew what the situation was. And so this has allowed us to take a step back, slow down, and have conversations with students about the conflicts and be able to mediate the situations before they escalate. Whereas, we might have had a parent come in upset about a situation that people weren't even aware of at this before they even came in. So this allows us to be more in tune to what's going on with our students, and the students are allowing the adults in the building to help facilitate any challenges that they might have. So ultimately, the 2nd year, and we've a decrease in cell phone use. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hey, other folks in person, come on up.
Good evening, I'm Katie Smuck. I'm a resident at 112 Flintlock Road here in Madison. I'm a parent of 2 students here in Madison, 6th grade and a sophomore at Daniel Hand. I'm also a pediatrician. I'm coming up on practicing about 19 years. And so I'm very happy to have heard about tonight's meeting. It just so happened that the American Academy of Pediatrics had their national conference 2 weekends ago, and they had a session addressing exactly this. So I just wanted to be open to sharing this with the school board. In terms of the research, it's very clear that personal device use in schools leads to tremendous distraction, both for the students and for the teachers in effective instruction. And it also leads to bullying, cyberbullying, or other types of bullying in the school. What is less well researched at this point in time is exactly what method or best practice exists in terms of how to best regulate the personal devices in the school system. And from the session that I attended, it sounds like there's going to be a lot more research coming up on that in the next year or so. This is a very complex issue. I can probably guess that most of us in the room didn't grow up with personal devices, and so we're learning as we go. But I think other take homes from the American Academy of Pediatrics were to be mindful of reducing the risk of personal device use in the school system, while also taking into account the importance of accommodating for individual student needs, specifically various medical needs that may require more frequent access to personal devices during the school day. Optimizing communication with school health personnel and families regarding health issues, also taking into account 504 plans, IEPs, and various educational supports. And I think personally, I feel that Madison Public Schools has done a good job of reminding parents that we can communicate during the school day with school staff and that we don't need to rely on personal devices. But at the same time, we've all gotten used to using the cell phones as a quick text here and there. So I think just reiterating that communication through the school system is an important piece as well. So I'm also representing a colleague of mine who couldn't be here tonight, Sarah Mervine, and she has students as well in Madison, and I'm lucky enough to work with her in our medical legal partnership. And she said I could use her name and echo the remarks and support for what Madison has done so far. So I'm happy to share these with the board after.
Thank you. We have anyone online who would like to speak at this time? Yeah. Okay. Or in person, come on up.
Hey, good evening. My name is Ted Cosgrove. I live at 43 Flintlock Road. I basically moved to Madison when I was 2 years old. My wife grew up here as well, and we're raised our 3 boys here. 2 are Daniel Hand High School graduates, and the 3rd is currently a junior at Daniel Hand High School. My career has been based in educational-based athletics, both at the intercollegiate level and the interscholastic level. The last 10 years have been, my last 10 years in the profession were in the interscholastic level in school districts, not Madison. I was the athletic director of Madison from 1998 to 2004. So kind of have a 30-year progression of how this is impacted. I remember starting my career at Yale in the athletic department in 1990, and MySpace came out. That was a no-no for student athletes, and we had to pay attention to it. Now we have this cell phone issue and the cell phone crisis, not only for kids, but for adults, and it's an addiction. My last year and a half professionally, I've been building a business of leadership, mindset, coaching, and also a partner with the Mental Game Academy based out of Canada, where we do work on mental fitness and cognitive performance coaching. One of the things that we do focus on in that area is how cell phones and social media impact performance. And I just wanted to share a few things with you today because, is it Dr. Grosso? One of the things that he said that caught me, they're at a graduate level at Yale University, they are teaching students executive functioning skills. Just think about it. This has nothing to do with you here or anything else. It's our society. What have we done that our young people haven't gotten at? So cell phone and social media research shows it impacts sleep, focus, right? All these distractions, kids can't focus more than 4 minutes. It's crazy. Brain chemistry. This is what I do want to focus with you tonight, brain chemistry. So when you use your cell phone and you scroll, you have dopamine releases, cortisol releases. It impacts physically how your body reacts to things. Then kicks in and impacts your vagus nerve and your central nervous system. When you educate children and you share with them what that is, and you show side by side brain activity, scrolling on your phone, what that does. Brain activity, someone taking a hit of cocaine and it being very similar, it gets their attention. So think about that. You're walking through the hallway in school and you're scrolling in between classes. You just took a hit of cocaine and you went back into class. You're not going to be focused. You're not going to be ready. Research and data shows that it takes 23 minutes for your brain to reset after you've done that. So there's things that we talk about in terms of not having access to phones, things in athletics where we want you to be off your phone an hour before practice, an hour before a game, because of all those brain chemistry issues that are there. It also impacts self-esteem and it impacts routines. Just a couple things here. Person averages 176 pickups of their phone a day. You have 24 hours in a day. You're getting 8 hours sleep, do the math. 16 hours, divided, 16 into 174. That's on average over 10 distractions per hour. If you were doing that as well. 16-year-olds, 22,000 hours of screen time by the time they're 16. It's 2.5 hours, 2.5 years of your life that is not being used for anything that's investing in yourself as a person to grow and develop.
Thank you. We're gonna have to just stop, keep moving on with our time.
And one thing my main point I wanted to make was part of this regulation and board policy. Please look really hard at what education and what mental skills and what mental tools we can provide our kids and our parents, our coaches and teachers. That whole ecosystem needs to be educated and providing tools that can get them through the rest of their life. Thank you.
People are welcome to speak at the end afterwards, right?
Yes,
You can
yeah,
repeat.
we can come back if there's time for everyone.
Yeah, you can repeat, come back and talk again.
Anyone online? No, okay. In person?
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica McMillan, and I'm at 24 Lenore Drive. I have two students in the Madison Public Schools in 4th grade and 7th grade. And I work professionally as a nurse practitioner. I think as we start to look at a phone-free policy in Madison schools, there's some important considerations that we need to be thinking about. And first is, why do we need a phone-free policy in the school buildings versus in the classrooms? And why can't we trust parents to set their own limits with their kids during school hours using things like screen time and app limits? The school days when students need to be able to focus, interact with each other, build in-person community, and engage with teachers. Studies show that having a phone, even turned off and put away, is associated with decreased student test scores. A phone-free school resets social norms for free periods and gives students back their opportunities for social development. And I think when we trust or rely on parents setting their own limits, we're getting to a point where their personal liberty starts to impinge on all students' development and social well-being. Many people have concerns about lack of access during school emergencies and lockdowns, and I think that that's a valid concern. We should all be worried about those situations. But security experts say phones can actually make students less safe in crisis situations because phones can distract attention from really important safety directions. Furthermore, victims and worried family members trying to get through can jam communications and actually impinge the work of first responders. People have concerns about how they would contact their students during the day, and I echo what's been said, that I think that the schools, the principals have done a good job of really encouraging parents to go through the office if plans change. And in addition to that, I think by providing this 24/7 access to communication, we really prevent growth opportunities in our children in terms of functioning independently from us. If they can text us every time they have a question or have a social conflict, they really miss the opportunity to think for themselves and develop problem-solving skills. Likewise, if a student needs to contact their parent for any reason, they can always go to the main office to maybe contact them. I think there's a question about why can't teachers be the ones to collect the phones and kind of oversee this, and I think the educators in this group can all attest to the fact that, you know, it's such an energy and time suck on the teachers' behalf when we ask them to do that. They benefit when we can do this for them by regaining that class time, that instructional time, instead of having to police phones. And when there's a consistent district-wide policy, it really reduces the pushback that students will have in terms of expectation setting. Students really need to be given independence during the school day to develop these foundational life skills that we've all been talking about tonight. Constant contact can fuel this cycle of anxiety for both students and parents. By encouraging independence, we can better foster our students' self-confidence, resilience, problem-solving ability, and mental health. And I think I also want to acknowledge the fact that social media can be a really important tool for many disenfranchised and minority kids who are struggling to find their identity. And I don't want to discount the importance of that ability for them to find connection with one another, but I'm just going to say it's still a distraction during school hours. And so it's important to keep that out of the schools. Thank you.
Yeah. No, okay, yep, next person can step.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Amford. I live at 92 Bartlett Drive. I have a 4th grader and a 7th grader. The first thing, I echo so much of the sentiments that have already been shared by both professionals and parents. But I started to look a little bit at this draft policy. I come from a healthcare operations background in business. And I'm looking at these expectations for high school and middle school and pre-K. I don't think I could live up to these. I'm told at work as a leader, I shouldn't be using earbuds in the hallways in the hospitals. I still use them. And I'm not able to change that practice personally, and I'm working on it. To put my phone away and not touch it, I don't do that well as a 47-year-old adult. And I don't want the teachers having to try to police this when I think our children right now, if I can't do it as a 47-year-old, how do we expect our children to be able to follow these guidelines? And to echo what Victoria said as well, I just talked to my 7th grader about it. And he was adamant. He's like, Mom, you've got to be involved in this, really? And I said, time out. Tell me why you're upset that I'm involved in this. He's like, because you're going to talk about cell phones. And I said, my son does not have one. And I said, we're going to sit down and talk about this. Why would someone need a cell phone in 7th grade? And he said, it's their property. I said, well, school has rules and we can get beyond the property argument. He said, what if something goes wrong? I said, Charlie, I have full faith in that school to communicate, and there are response plans for emergencies. I don't want you trying to call me on a phone. I want you to follow the guidelines of your teachers and address that emergency situation. He's like, right. And I said, is it because they're cool? And he said, maybe. And he's like, Mom, kids use them all the time in the bathroom. I don't want our teachers being responsible for making kids not use them in bathrooms. That is a waste of their time. It's a waste of any administrator or educated professional spending time on this. So those are my biggest points. But if I can't do it, how do I expect my 7th grader to not use social media when a policy says he should be? Thank you.
Yeah. Online really quick. No, okay. Yeah, come on up.
Hi, thank you all for your time. I'm sorry if this is redundant because we came from ballet. These are my girls back here. I teach at the Yale School of Public Health. I teach graduate students. And I've been
State your name and address.
Oh, I'm Laura Boswell. I live on 14 Dairy Hill Road in Madison, sorry.
Thank you.
So I've seen a significant change over time in student well-being, I teach ethics, so ethics requires people to talk across different perspectives and try to come to a compromise. And I've seen a growing rigidity among students that may be attributed to a number of things, but I think the absence of an environment where you sit down in a classroom and you talk to someone and you develop a social relationship with your peer, instead moving that relationship online creates these very narrow identity groups. And I see a lot of dehumanization among my students where they're willing to just ignore and not care about someone sitting right next to them because their community is online. This is extremely damaging for all of their mental health. I think it's damaging for our democracy and our ability to talk to people who think differently from us. And I think it's important for relationships too, in terms of, you can have an idea of who someone is online, but in reality, that person might be very different when you face them, one-on-one. And to develop a relationship with another human being requires a lot of give and take and compromise. And I don't think that these online communities that students are developing identities with at very young ages are providing the proper socialization for them to mature into adults who are capable of working with other people in different settings. So I think that's my main concern. And I don't know if people have talked about security. I know people who favor having schools and phones in school, sorry, tired. I haven't heard what has been said, so I apologize if it's redundant. But I know people who favor access to schools and phone usually take a security stance. What if there is something terrible? I want my kid to be able to contact me. So in public health, we have to have everything be evidence-based, and we can't just say, because this is a theory, that's how it would play out in reality. And I think, as the previous speaker alluded to, in an actual, say, school shooting or event, is it really helpful to be looking down when you want to have eyes and ears paying attention to what's going on around you? There's a good public health literature on distractions of using cell phones. So there's higher rates of accidents now among young people, pedestrians who are just walking on their cell phones or getting hit by cars. So I don't know that, I don't have the evidence one way or another on this, but I definitely would push back on the idea that cell phones make our kids safer in an emergent situation when you really need to be responsive to the world around you. I think those are my main points, and I'm definitely on board with everyone who says, put those pouches in the school, let's support our teachers. Being an educator today is harder than it has ever been. I wouldn't encourage my kids to go into the profession I have joined, because it's just, I think the online environment and the technology changes make it extremely difficult to teach. So I'd like to, encourage our students to sit down with other people, talk to people. Yeah. That's it. Okay.
But I know there's a lot of stuff. I want to make sure everyone has a chance. I just want to reiterate for anyone online, because I've seen some people joining. If you are joining us on Zoom and you would like to speak, we're alternating in person and on Zoom. You can just raise your hand and you will be called upon. And we also ask the folks online to be mindful of the 3-minute time limit. We'll go back in person.
Luca Rastelli, 406 Summer Hill Road. We have a junior at Daniel Hand High School. So speaking about the people that are talking about evidence-based, there seems to be a major confusion between the negative influence of social media, which is clearly demonstrated by a multiplicity of studies, versus what we are talking about today, which is actually use or not use of cell phone in the school environment. The fact that unfortunately we as a family cannot monitor, appropriately educate our children to interact with other children has nothing to do with whether or not they use cell phone at school under the limited policy that is outlined in that document. And the fact that all of you seems to have completely discounted the emergency and safety concern. I believe there is a school shooting in the United States more than once a week, okay? Imagine, and if you have not read, please Google, Imagine a situation where the children could not communicate with anybody outside. Imagine a situation in Texas where those poor kids were in that classroom for several hours, okay, some of them bleeding to death. Would have been the difference if one of them had the possibility to communicate to the outside and tell those idiots of the police department and the state police and so on to actually do something. Several lives would have been saved. And this can be said of any other accident that is happening on the constant basis. And the person that was saying that, I've seen differences for the last 30 years. 30 years ago, schools were not dangerous places. If there was maybe bullying, somebody would punch somebody else and that would be immediate evidence. Now, the teacher cannot intervene because the bullying is happening online, but it's mostly happening not at school. The fact that here is only being asked that the kids do have the cell phone and they can access it under very specific regulation, I think is very important. And the fact that somehow we cannot have regulation for kids, how can they mature and actually appreciate the rules of life if we don't give them rules to follow? We think they cannot do it. I think this whole story is essentially the typical situation which the society has a problem and we are trying to solve it here, and we don't want to address the real issue, which of course is social use, but outside of the school. So I think that the policy that is outlined there, especially feeling so strongly about the possibility of use in a safety situation, I think under certain limited circumstances, kids should have phone. They should be able to access them under appropriate rules.
Thank you. Online folks, for this listening, anything? Okay, in person? Anyone else would like to speak who hasn't yet? Well,
My name is Vanessa Azevedo and I live at 81 Silent Hill. I'm a student at Brown. I wanted to give you my thoughts about having phones at school. I don't like having phones at school because we have all these great materials to use to learn. We have books, teachers, and Chromebooks. We can use all that to learn. At the end of the day, I see kids walking out holding their phones, showing their friends games and stuff. I see them looking at their phones and not saying goodbye or anything. They're just staring at their phones. Instead of looking at their phones, they could be talking with their friends in real life. I also think they should not use their phones on the bus because the bus is still school property. I hope we can change the rules about phones because I don't want phones at school as I grow up here in Madison. Thank you for listening.
thank you so much for being here. Who else in person would like to speak at this time? Go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity to share and for caring about this issue. My name is Shelley Grosso. Excuse me. I live at 96 Princess Drive and have 2 children at Polson and 1 at Ryerson. I'd like to speak from the perspective of the children like my own who do not have cell phones. From his book, The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt deems social deprivation as one of the 4 foundational harms of a phone-based childhood. He writes, even when teens are within a few feet of their friends, their phone-based childhoods damage the quality of their time together. Smartphones grab our attention so powerfully that if they merely vibrate in our pockets for 1/10 of a second, many of us will interrupt a face-to-face conversation. just in case the phone is bringing us an important update. We usually don't tell the person to stop talking. We just pull out our phones, put some pecking at it, leaving the other person to conclude reasonably that she is less important than the latest notification. It's painful to be ignored at any age. Just imagine a teen trying to develop a sense of who you are and where you fit in, where everyone you meet tells you indirectly you're not as important as the people on my phone. Now we can imagine this playing out between classes or during lunch when phones are still available. Instead of face-to-face conversation and connection, kids are silently bent over their phones, checking notifications, scrolling TikTok, or amplifying micro dramas on socials. But these students are not the only ones missing out on important face-to-face social interaction. Those children without cell phones are left competing with the attention of a screen, finding themselves more isolated from their peers. and experiencing to an even greater degree this social deprivation. Excuse me. Recently, I was waiting to pick up my child at Folsom. I watched 3 students come outside, separately sat down on the benches out there. They were each on their smartphone. A 4th child approached and chatted with one child who never looked up from their phone, but did offer him a high five. The phoneless child then went over to a second and started talking to them. The child on their phone never looked up or acknowledged him. I was watching this from my car. The phone-free child then sat down and just stared ahead as the others remained looking at their phones in silence. Before long, he reached into his backpack, pulled out his Chromebook, and started. My heart sunk. How many times does this scene play out over the course of a school day when phones are present? How many missed opportunities to tell a joke, a story, a laugh, sing favorite songs together in between classes or lunch? What if instead of playing online games on Chromebooks during Pride, students actually engage with one another face to face? What if instead of looking at their phones in school, kids, all kids, were just kids? And I'll just briefly, if I have 10 seconds, let you know that I'll leave these that I've already given Dr. Cook. They're a toolkit describing details how to run pouches in schools. And I'll also leave, for anyone interested, a wonderful example of how school safety in phones and pouches happened in Naugatuck on August the 28th. And because the phones were in their pouches, the training that the school had, administrators working with local law enforcement, worked seamlessly to foil and figure out what was going on in a code black. So I'm happy to leave these for everyone to read later. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lauren Carpenter. My address is 40 Kennedy Lane. I have 2 children. One is a 2nd grader at Jeffrey and the other is in pre-K. I am, along with Shelly Grasso and Julia Phillips, co-founders of Madison Youth Unplugged. We created this group after reading The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, which you've heard a lot about at this point. I also direct teacher preparation programs at Albertus Magnus College, so I can attest to the fact that teachers do not want to go into the field right now. And so I want to talk a little bit about how we enforce these policies. So at Madison Youth Unplugged, we are hopeful for a phone away all day policy, which you can deduce by now. And as we look through the CSDE model policies, there's sort of 2 factors that stand out to me. One, that the onus of the enforcement of the policy varies across these different policies. And the other is that some schools don't deem it necessary to have phones away all day. They are allowing it during social times. So in our pursuit of an away all day policy, I think one big question is that I want to focus on now is who's going to enforce this. We've talked a little bit about this tonight with other testimony about how it isn't fair for teachers to be the ones to enforce this. We know that we're facing a massive teacher shortage in this state. Teachers do not want to enter the field. This cannot be another added responsibility. I want to talk a little bit about the Yonder pouches just in a little more detail because I do believe this could be a potential solution. The fact that students are able to have these pouches on them, I think greatly reduces a lot of the anxiety that they may feel and potentially parents as well. I don't know if anyone has been to a comedy show or a concert where these pouches have been in place, but kind of herding an entire crowd to lock their phones away and then leaving the show and having the ability to just unlock it while not even breaking stride. It's so easy. So students using Yonder pouches can have their phones just before school, just after school, and they can have them on them all day long. So in the case of an emergency, it is possible for a teacher in a room to have the device needed to unlock these pouches. So I think a lot of these arguments about safety are moot if the Yonder pouches are in place. So the last thing I want to say is that right now we have currently many districts across urban and suburban school districts using these pouches. We have New Canaan,
Manchester, New Haven, Middletown, Waterbury, and Wilton. This is a true mix of urban and suburban, really truly highlighting how vast this issue is, and it crosses socioeconomic status. Using these pouches, we think that this would be a way to kind of really move forward, and we hope that the board would support potentially putting them into the budget for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person? Go ahead.
My name is Julia Phillips. I live at 33 Sheffield Lane, and I currently have 2 kids at Folsom. I think that it's important to, okay. I think it's important for kids to understand the why behind this push to ban cell phones in schools. Studies prove better student buy-in for a Yonder Pouch program if they're educated on the topic. Watching a movie like Screenagers, which is appropriate for age 10 and up. I've seen it, and it's a wow. Having speakers at school to explain the adverse effects of too much gaming or social media. Inviting therapists and doctors to educate kids on the fact that their brains physically are smaller and they have less neuron connections. It's pretty jarring for anyone to hear. This creates a child with less impulse control, less empathy, less motivation, not to mention the overload of dopamine that keeps us stuck to our screens for more time than we probably would like. With the introduction of Yonder Pouches in schools, we will be giving our kids a break. We realize it's only a 7-hour break, but studies show it increases their focus, coping skills, happiness levels, grades, and sense of community. Here are some quotes from students across America and beyond who have participated in the Yonder Pouch program. There's a pilot school in the Dominican Republic, and here's some quotes from those kids. It takes away the anxiety of wanting to take your phone out in school. I thought about my phone all the time before, now I can concentrate better. I didn't like the idea at first. I wanted to check my phone all the time and I felt frustrated, but I only felt that way for about a week. Now I notice that I've been more interactive with teachers and students. I participate more. I thought I would need my phone and this would be impossible, but it's not. It feels like a detox. Not being able to snap a picture of the homework is the only real problem I have. It's not traumatic in the way I thought it would be. Morgan from Texas. They do give us a chance to focus on our work and get more comfortable talking to each other. I think the Yonder Pouches have positively impacted student life by causing students to be comfortable with not relying on their phones all day. More authentic thoughts are being put into student work, and this is allowing students to get a better grasp on their coursework. Jeremiah from North Carolina. I thought it'd be weird at first because it's like a random pouch, but it's a good idea now that I've used it. I think everybody's more focused, and when they come into the school straight out of the gate, because everyone's phones are not a distraction anymore. And from New York. This is a huge change for me considering I was used to the usual weight of it in my back pocket. However, I actually really loved not having a constant distraction available to me. I began talking more and picking up information in my classes a lot easier. Cooper from Utah. My biology teacher came in and we were all talking before class started. He said, "Wow, I'm gonna have to ask you to quiet down, but I've never seen this before. Usually everyone's just on their phone." He said he was happy that he had to tell us to be quiet. Based on these quotes, we can clearly see that Yonder Pouches are beneficial to students. Change is scary for all of us, but clearly the benefits outweigh the fear that many people have. As we have proven time and time again, Madison's a leader in education. Let's be the cutting edge leaders that we always are and do the right thing. We are going to address this now, or in a year, or 2 years. Let's strike sooner rather than later and help the most kids as possible.
Thank you. So we have just about 8 minutes left in this meeting. Would anyone else like to speak at this time?
Hi, my name is Beth Azabeda, 81 Silo Hill. We thank you all, and especially Dr. Cook, for hosting this special community meeting tonight and giving us the time and space to provide valuable feedback and input on this subject. Over the last couple of days leading up to the meeting, I've been curious to better understand the current policies of other leading Connecticut schools and how they are tackling this issue right now. Here are the top 10 headlines from my research. Number 1, Waterbury Public Schools will convert middle and high school schools into phone-free and Bluetooth device spaces to improve teaching and learning with Yonder Pouch system, which has been implemented in more than 3,000 schools and counting. Number 2, Westport School District. The Super of Schools, Thomas Scaris, says he supports establishing a completely phone-free environment for students at all of the town's schools. Number 3, New Canaan Public Schools executed a parent survey this summer that went out to 2,400 members of the community, and with a 60% response rate, after the clear results, their town's middle school implemented a lockup policy with Yonder pouches. It started just this week. Number 4, Wilton Public Schools. The town school district is using Yonder pouches by mid-September to prevent middle and high school students from using their cell phones on campus during the school day. Number 5, Darien School District is rolling out its new policy in September, prohibiting the use of personal electronic devices in its middle and elementary schools from bell to bell. Number 6, Glastonbury is planning to notify parents that elementary and middle school students won't be allowed to use phones during school hours. The district will relax the rules at the high school, but students still won't be allowed to use devices in schools. Number 7, Manchester is awaiting their Yonder pouches that were purchased with a $52,000 state grant as part of a previously piloted program in their middle school last year. Governor Lamont called it a model for schools across the state. Number 8, Farmington, as of October 4th, just last week, they have announced its participation in the governor's cell phone free pilot program. The program aims to address the mental health impact of phone use on teenagers by reducing cell phone distraction during the school day and balancing communication needs during emergencies. Number 9, Torrington School District. All students are allowed to bring technology into their schools, but at the middle and high school levels, it will be locked in district-issued cell phone pouches throughout the entire day. Number 9, New Haven. We heard from someone there today. Barnard School required students to lock away their cell phones during a pilot program last year, and 3 more public schools implemented Yonder pouches this school year after the success of the pilot. Number 10, Madison Public Schools. What will our headline be? Are we going to be a leader in this area, just like we're a leader in test scores? I think one of the most important threads that keeps tying through all of these leading school district examples is community input, involvement, and buy-in from the school and parent community. As you can see by the attendance in this room and Zoom hopefully and beyond, we support you and this movement to make change, and this change will not only positively impact the schools we have in our schools now, but generations of kids down the way. We believe you have the courage to do the right thing. This is our moment. Let's do right for Madison youth. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left. Did anyone else like to speak at this time? And just a reminder, the board is meeting, our regular meeting at 7:30, and there is an additional time for public comment at the beginning of that meeting. So if you don't get a chance to speak now, you can speak then. Anyone else would like to speak now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just come up, state your name and address, or just limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Oh, it'll be less than that. Thank you. So my name's Tiffany McGee. I'm from 96 Sandalwood Drive. Oh, I'm a little nervous, so. Anyway, my daughter attends Daniel Hand High School. I recently found out about their policy that each person can use the bathroom that align with their gender identity. I have compassion for students who are confused about their gender. I believe providing a unisex bathroom for their use is a great solution.
So I just want to pause for a moment. This meeting is about cell phone use, and we're only having input on cell phones. So
Oh,
this-
I am so sorry.
You can come back for this
I am
7:30
so
and
new to
speak at that
this.
time.
No,
That's
no,
okay.
no,
Just come back.
So please forgive me.
No,
fine.
10 minutes here.
Yeah, just wait,
Okay.
wait for the next meeting. Yeah,
Wait.
like,
Yeah,
10
sorry,
minutes max.
sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak about cell phones? Or smartphones or any of those?
So if you wanted to finish your statement that you did.
Erica? No one else? Okay.
I'm gonna take it.
I'm Erica McMillan, 24 Lenore Drive. Hello again. I just want to address something that was mentioned that I think is something that I've struggled with personally with this issue, which is how do we teach our kids how to use it responsibly while simultaneously so severely restricting their access to it? And I think back to when my kids were 2 and 3 years old and where they were at developmentally at that point in time. And how ridiculous it would have been to tell my 2-year-old to go upstairs and clean her room without going up there and walking beside her or giving her really explicit 1 step at a time instructions. If I had told my 6-year-old that I was going to expect for her to put up the Christmas tree without any help. For us to say that it's enough to keep the phone in the locker without expecting them to be okay with knowing that it's there, knowing that it could be that, you know, these distractions are there and that they're thinking through them and that it's enough to take them away from where they're at in their classrooms. It's like expecting a 2-year-old to clean their room. Their prefrontal cortexes are not developed enough for them to avoid the addictive pull of those devices. We cannot expect them to be able to manage this. And we also need to teach them at the same time. And so expecting for them to be able to do it at school when we're not there to walk alongside them with it is a lot for parents to be comfortable with. And I think, yes, we do need to teach them how to use social media responsibly and how to use their phones responsibly, but school is not the place to do it. Part of teaching responsibility is going to be teaching them how to be off their phones comfortably, just as much as it is to be on their phones responsibly. Thank you.
So you can come back. We've got like
Say
1, 2 minutes.
clarify one thing, okay, it'll be quick. So I just wanted to clarify, when we talk about teachers enforcing these cell phone policies. So the CSD policies that have come out, the model policies, I believe that some of them expect teachers to enforce these policies while others are more institutionally rolled out using the pouches. And so asking students to keep their phones locked away or silenced in their bag or their locker is really putting the onus of the enforcement on the teachers. Whereas having the phones locked away in a pouch, being institutionalized, will support the teachers in being able to do their jobs while the student also can do their jobs to learn. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, for speaking and sharing your thoughts. As we said before, this conversation will continue and we welcome you at any of our board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much.